Bien, vamos a dar paso a la
We are
tercera
now going to go to the third speech of this afternoon, from which it has to do with the sustainability of the productive section in the livestock. We want to remind you that during this presentation, you can immediately start asking your questions by going into the chat. And at the end of the presentation, we will review all of the questions and doubts or ideas that you might have for our speaker. One of the high pillars of the improvement of the male has to do with the dairy cows. The person of ABS is going to talk about the advances of the genetics in this area by Camila Mendoza. She is a veterinarian. She was received from the University of Austral de Chile in 2011. She has an MBA in 2008 and another one in 2020, postgraduate. She has been working in the agriculture world and 6 in the ABS. Right now, she is the manager of the meat production since 2019. And her work is mainly focused on designing and validating the genetic of the reproducers that they're being used of this genetic improvement, trying to find the improvement and the economical benefits for the whole value chain. The title of the presentation is Strategic Use of Bin Genetics. 3 experiences and results of dairy herd trials in Casablanca, Ñuble, and Rio Negro. Good luck, Camila, and you can begin whenever you want. Hello, Benito. Thank you so much. Thank you for this beautiful presentation. It's an honor for me to be able to show what we have been doing as ABS. And I want to ask you a question to be able to start. Do you think that it is possible to generate the check number 13 for the dairy farm and to short it in 45 days to be able to finish the animals? Well, that is what we are going to talk about. And this is what I'm going to show you that we are achieving this here in Chile. But all of this has to do with the use of the genetics in the meat and in the dairy farms, especially in the 2 breeds that we are using, which is the 2 lines that we are using. All of this is happening because ABS is a genetic company, but also research and development. And we are constantly looking for something to help each time more our producers. And the truth is we have not been able to do the integration as this between the meat producer and the dairy producer. So therefore, we think that the dairy producer can have the best animal and he can get the replacement calves. Obviously, improve animals, which could have been selected through the pedigree, through the GMS, or through the genome, which is the current tool. It has a better precision and are animals with the lowest merit, animals that I would not like to continue reproducing, or animals that do not give a good calf can use this genetic for meat. But the difference they can use any other genetics is that this is a semen of meat which has been proved in the dairy farms. And this is the huge difference that we have up to now. We know that many times when you are generating something very good, the industry immediately wants to do it. And we have had these 2 lines, which is the black line, which is the N14 with an Angus and a P15, which is the Kislu, which has a calf, which can go for the meat chain, is what that Andres was talking about, and also Dr. Henry. As we were talking about from their own indexes, the idea of ABS started 10 years ago in England, and 6 years ago, we created the nucleus of the genetics. How do we evaluate this? 2 ways. One with the index of the beef advantage, which has been designed for these dairy herds. One which has an easy calving. We don't want to with a cesarean or bigger help for the calving of this calf. Longer gestation, because some of these meat breeds increase the gestation time, but also we're using those that are at the very end. We don't want to add more days, we want to shorten the days. We want to have the quality of the calf, which is subjective. We are making it more objective through kilograms and the survival of the calf from 12 to 48 hours and at the real price. And the first thing that we are evaluating is the new profit index is to validate the growth of these animals. If we can see that the growth in the daily weight gain that goes hand in hand with the sustainability, few days forward to finish, and also the meat quality. Up to now, we have 1.3 million of data in dairy cows. We have the easy calving, longer gestation, but these data are not only in the Holstein, but they also in the jerseys, in the crosses, in the cows, and in the heifers, where Chile has also given data. United States mainly, Italy, India, Australia, England, all of the countries that have this system can give us their information. So the question is, would it have been designed in England, where we know that the main use was for the dairy herds, where we have alliances with ABP and Meadow Quality, in the United States, where we know where they like to have a more fatty meat, where they develop the Angus, which are the importing, and in Australia, where we have a little bit more pasturing, but they want animals which are very heavy. So we have a scenario where the animals are taken out quickly from the dairy farms and where we are giving them practically throughout their whole life in feedlots. Would this genetic be possible to be used in Chile? And would it have the results that are in the other countries? That was the question that we asked ourselves. And not only this, the customer of our clients and our farmer was, I don't know, they use animalizers. The feed is 100% concentrated. They did not believe much in it. So therefore, our work was to be able to gather the data and validate them. So therefore, we created a group of dairy farms. The most northern was in Casablanca, and the southernest was Purranque, to be able to give our real data of Chile to ABC Global, but also to be able to analyze this information
y saber cuál es el tipo de
and to
producción
create indexes and to know what is the type of production that these clients have. And at the end is to create value. Create value, prove it, validate it in our country, and to share this value throughout the whole and have a cycle between the dairy farms, the producers, the slaughtering house, and also the final customer. And this is how we came up with the Beef Circle, which is our group of dairy farmers where we began to collect data from them and with a special spreadsheet that we did not have from the 1st of January to 2020 until 25 of July of 2021. Our goal was 25,000 data, and we were able to have it. We were able to gather 3,721 data. It's very difficult to gather the data. You probably will know this because many of this data is being lost. The traceability sometimes doesn't arrive at the end. So that is why we have the data of the easy calving, large gestation, and stillborns. We also have the weight at birth and the weight at being weaned and also the daily weight gain. So in this case, we have Holstein, Jersey, Kiwi crosses. With all of these different breeds that we are working with, as Dr. said previously, giving it a value to this animal that probably did not have any value, could be a Jersey male or a Kiwi cross male per se. So what is the most important thing is to know the experiences of our customer, as it might be a little bit difficult, this presentation. We recorded some videos with them, and after this, I will show you the final data. Hello, this afternoon. My name is Jose Luis Terraza. I'm the operator of the agriculture company of Santa Sara. We are located in Casablanca, in the farm of Casablanca. We are a dairy farm of more than 50 years of existence. Today we have an amount of important cattle which is made up from the on-grow and also the milking cows. Of some of them, we have 1,600 cows that are being milked and around 1,800 more a population, plus all of the rearing animals, about 1,200. And plus we have this feedlot process where we are at right now. We have a capacity of 1,200 in a permanent way. As far as the InFocus cattle, we began using this system starting from 2019, from June of 2019, thinking mainly in raising the female that are necessary for the replacement in our dairy farm, and also try to find an economical benefit with our hybrid or with our males. And this is where they introduced the semen with around 40% of our dairy cows. Basically, the cows of less genetic value. Today, in the projection, the annual projection is to have about 450 hybrid animals, plus the males for the dairy farm, about 490 animals per year, which would allow us to have a flow of 1,100 for our feedlot. What have we seen with the short time during this year? As I mentioned previously, this started with the insemination in June of 2019, the first calvings we had in March of 2020. And now in March of this year, March or April, we had our first animals which went out to sell. Not only with T14, which is the Angus, with T15, which is the British Blue or the Belgium. What have we seen? In the shorter time of on-grow, we have gained about a month and a half with a normal Holstein with very attractive weights, weight over 500 kilograms coming out of the farm and made up of the British animal. It's a very neat animal. You can see the image. It's an animal that has a very good bulk with very little coverage, fat coverage, which makes it very attractive for the butcher shop. And the Angus, clearly seen in their genetics, you can see in an animal which has a fat coverage, which is more attractive for the premium meat, which is being used to have this coverage. When we talk about the weight gain, what can I say? If we do an average, it's around 1.2, 1.25 kilograms per day since the moment of calving until they are sold, with around 390 days starting from the birth until 12, 13 months.
Bueno, nuestra primera experiencia.
Our first experience was very important to be able to see the different types of production that exists. In the case of Jose Luis, like he said, the calves, after they came out of the dairy farm, they go to this feedlot. They are always in feedlot, so we can find a good weight gain, and we can see what they finished at a shorter time. So this is what we want to see in our next experience. But what we want to highlight that is to raise just the right amount of females and necessary amount of females. If we do not have a security in this, then it's very well to know what are the cows that I really need, because we know that this part is very, very expensive. It's one of the most expensive. So therefore, we need to destine the money with the ones that I want to keep. On the other hand, find a economical benefit for our hybrid males to shorten the time of on-grow from 1 to 1.5 months. In regard to the Holstein males, Jose Luis also says he stays with the male Holsteins. The T15 is made up of more like meat and a small coverage, which you see the ones that are gray in the picture. And the T14 has an attractive coverage over type 2, which is a more of a premium meat due because of its Angus genetics. and 1.2 and 1.25 kilograms per day from the moment that they are born until they are sold about 12 or 13 months later. This is very attractive. Our next experience goes a little bit more to the south.
Bueno, buenas tardes.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Jose Azócar here in the El Roble farm in Bulnes in the Ñuble region. Today we have 1,200 animals in our herd, and we began to use meat semen as long as we're complying with our goal from our cow herd. And we saw an opportunity to have a different business niche, which was to select the best cows, to leave the best genetics in a part of the dairy cows that we will start calving with the meat semen. So we've been having zero mortality at the moment of birth, of calving. And now they are born with very good weights, low weight, and increasing. As I increase in age, the daily weight gain has been very good. It happens very well. We have had very good conception rates, a lot of pregnant calves, and we have improved quite a lot the genetic of our herd thanks to the sex cell. We have grown quite a lot in our herd, a lot of heifers, and very good genetic, the truth is. The cows with very good results up to this moment. We hope this continues this way. Today we are with the genetic program. We are working 10% of the genetic improvement with the sex cell and the rest with the conventional. Thinking that today that the business niche changed and increasing the herd. We are very happy with what happened with sex cell. We have been growing with very good fertility, so we hope that we can comply with our goals quickly. Very good animals with very good genetics.
Bueno, José nos comentaba que ellos
Jose commented that they are using in their dairy farms, which might be a well-known name for you. They have a genetic plan. So through this genetic plan, they select the animals that are going to go with the sexage semen, which will be the meat semen. They talked about a business opportunity. This is something that they had not seen before. On the other hand, he said, we have had zero mortality at calving. That's it. Fantastic. That's one of the first things that it rebounds in our mind. We want to continue, even though he might have. We are not going to have a calf that will help us to generate an extra income. If it is a meat calf, it would have the same value as a meat. They have low weights, but they have a very good gain as the day goes by. We can see the video. It seems to have very thin contextures, but you saw how they were, the steers at the end. Now we're going to go a little bit more to the south with the experience with Renato. My name is Renato Fuentes Carracos. I am in charge of reproduction. We are in the area of the heifers, the calves, I'm sorry. Here we are in the area of rearing, and we are here with the meat rearing. We have the genetics of the Holstein. We have been 1 year now with this plan, and we're going to see we are using the percentage of the sexage semen with the conventional semen and meat semen. It begins to vary according to what the management is asking. But right now, we have 45% of the sexage, 25 with the conventional, and 25 with the meat semen. We have a conception rate in the sexage of a 42% annually. And the conventional, a couple of points more, 48 or 50%. The benefits is to decrease using the sexage semen. We have a high percentage of females, and we want to decrease as much possible of the male calves. Here we have an animal with about better potential for the meat as males or also females.
Bueno, Renato nos cuenta que ellos
What
utilizan
Renato was telling us that they are using a signation where 50% of the sex cell, where they have used them in their cows, not only in the heifers, but also in the cows. Part of it conventional and 25% of the meat semen. They decided to use both lines. A great percentage of the females decreased as maximum as possible the male hostings. By using the meat semen, we have an animal with another potential for the meat chain, both the females and males. The percentage that we have seen right now and the data that we have taken has been a 15% more or less of the weight difference between a male of the 14 and 5% and the female and the male of the B15. And something that is very important, we are obtaining an overprice at the moment that we want to sell, which is the point. We're not saying it, but the customer is saying this. They have seen a possibility of business which would pay him more than what they were paying before and a year ago. The last experience, and a whole lot more in the south, from Gabriela.
Trabajo en Agrícola Coñicoa y Agrícola Don Alfonso. Y estas crías que están viendo acá son...
These are our smallest females. These were bought from another company. In intermediate, you might see one or other because last year we had a very few. And we are also using sex cell. And for this year, we are going to have more of our own production. It has worked very well, but we wanted to see with the females in the dairy farm, you can see a better opinion. And the decision to use sex cell and to disenfocus the meat genetics. What was the reason why we made this decision? One was to increase the price and to increase the final product. In case it's not finished, that it'd be more attractive to sell if this would be the case. It has been going very well. The animals have very good presentation. We are in the Coñico Purranque area, and we're very happy with the services here. And this resolves all of our problems that we have been seeing day to day.
Bueno, y positivamente el día que fuimos,
Positively, the day that we went, their first calf was born, that we saw at the end of the video. They do something very special. They generated two businesses because on one side, they buy from other milk producers the animals that were bigger. And this gives an opportunity to buy from another producer. This would give them the possibility of having a part that was not destined for the dairy herd to be able to produce meat. They also had the previous knowledge since their family were meat producers a few years ago. So therefore, for them, it was a possibility, a real possibility. On the other hand, throughout the genetic plan, they took the decision of using sex cell and to use this meat semen of EFocus, where they could produce their own meat animals and have a finished product at a better price. In the case it wasn't finished, it would be more attractive to be able to sell them at any moment, whether at birth, at the weaning, or for on-growing, or at the end, the finish. So therefore, when we are talking about the data that we were able to collect in the beef circle, all of these are from Dairycom, and the plan sheet of Circle Beef. These data were taken from the cows, some with a natural heat, another with a fixed time, some animals with problems, and some repeaters. We have 44% of the conception rate, having a difference between the categories, which we have called with these bulls. And here you can see the maximum and the minimum that we have achieved. And if we divide this into two parts, this data, we have the beef advantage, which is important for the dairy, which is important, obviously, the fertility, but also the one has the easy calving, and one is without help, and 4 is cesarean, and we have not had any help up to this moment. And the T15 1.2, which has been very little help. Large gestation that we are talking about is not to short this. We have 272 with the F14 and 276 with the F15. And the stillborn, even though he had 0%, what we have registered up to this moment is 0.36% in the case of the F14 and 0.74% with the F15. Very low, much lower than the normal that we have in the Holstein. If you remember the previous presentation, they were talking about having less diseases. There are stronger animals at the moment of birth. If we talk about the importance for the meat production, we have the Euro Profit Index where we can see the weight at calving depends a lot on the mother's weight and breed. 38 kilograms have been the average and 43 for the F15. The weight at weaning, 139 kilograms in the case of F14, 151 kilograms at the case of F15. And the daily weight gain, as the experience have shown, depends a lot on what kind of feed you're giving them. If it's 100% feedlot, if it's pasture with a concentration, whatever the customer might have available. In the first stages from the birth until the weaning of the F14, we have 930 grams per day. And in the part of the Angre, 1.350. In the case of the F15, 890 grams at the moment of birth, and at the moment Angro, a kilo 250, coming up to an average weight of 540 of the F14 and 590 in the case of the F15. So therefore, what are we looking for? We're looking for efficiency, profitability, and sustainability. If we look at this beef circle, we look at our customers who are using the genetics to create a group so that they can compare and see what one is doing, the other are doing in the different parts of Chile with the different parts of productions. The strategy, to be able to define the strategies, to be able to go with them, to see where we can increase our profitability and always be assessing them together with our pillars of the animal welfare, trying to eliminate or taking out the system as soon as possible, that the dairy farms know how to produce animals very good immunity so that they can have a good meat quality, validate our data, and to know that the genetics that we are using in England and the United States and India and Australia is the same and just as good here in Chile. So therefore, this is a pillar of sustainability since our animals are measured by their efficiency, but now we also have a index of the carbon footprint. So therefore, don't be amazed if in our next chapter we will have the green seal on one of our genetic lines. So therefore, what can I say? We can say that the milk producer can have his check number 13. He can have an investment through the maintenance and infrastructure with replacement or maybe with the sex cell or embryons, and to have a new business. Having these meat animals, maybe to keep them or sell them to another milk producer, dairy producer, or maybe have another milking room. For the milk producer, they can shorten the days in each period and be more efficient in this. We can finish at 300 to 45 days before the Holstein male. For the meat chain, we can give him a homogeneous product, which is predictable in its meat characteristics, and it can be constant. A loin, it'd be the same as one or the other, whether the mother is Holstein or any other kind. And also, this is for other markets with more fat or less fat. This circle in the chain and not just a chain, because we can be associated with the dairy farms, with those who grow out the animals, and also with the slaughterhouse, coming to the consumer with a more sustainable product, so we can produce profit throughout this genetic progress. This is what I wanted to present, but I wanted to thank of all of the clients who participated in our videos. Jose Luis Terraza from the Santa Clara from Casablanca, Jose Azócar from El Roble, Renato Fuentes from Ancali, and Gabriela Cacher from Coñico, and also their collaborators, Pierto, Ricardo, and Rodolfo. So I will be attentive to any of your questions. Thank you, Camila. Very beautiful, your presentation, very interactive, with the testimonies of the different producers who are using the genetics the ABS has available to the livestock producers. There's a first question related to the British Blue breed that for many people, it's not so usual here in Chile. They were asking what is the difference that exists between the Bella Fleur. To put it under context, why do you not prefer using the Belgian Blue for the final crossing instead of the British Blue? The Belgian Blue is a breed that has the nominated the origin. That's the first point. And the second point, since it is a meat breed, all of the data that have it are in meat. So therefore, what we did, and this is what I commented, it was that the nucleus was in England, which 10 years ago they began to have a Belgian Blue, but then it began to be a genetic selection until they got away from the Belgian Blue and they generated a new breed. That is why it's not called Belgian Blue, but it originally comes from the Belgian Blue. Why also is it changing its name? Because it can provide milk, and all of the characteristics of these animals are in the dairy herds. And this is very important to do a double pulp animal and to go back and try to use this British Blue in a meat animal might cause us some problems due to this double pulp gene. This is made so that this genetic will be used in the dairy herds. And also all of the data are taken in the dairy producers. In fact, I comment, we have a dairy producer who is very important. He didn't want to participate because he was embarrassed, but he has the Jersey and Kiwi cross. And at the beginning, he saw that his animals were using Angus breed, did not generate a very desirable product. He began to use the British Blue. And the truth, he was impressed of how it gives them a meat characteristic of this animal that they didn't have before. Thank you so much. On this same subject, there is another question which was just answered, and also we saw it in the presentation, but maybe we could re-stress the idea. It is related to the British Blue, which has to do with related to the dairy producer, which has his eye on the milk production and the welfare of the cow. How do you maintain this easy calving in the mothers? And does this influence on the large gestation of the mother? One of the fundamental pillars, as we were talking about in the presentation, was to give security to the dairy farmer that he's not going to have any problems. And we are evaluating the easy calving. If we look at the characteristics of each one of the bulls that we have and we measure them, of 70 to 730, the idea is to, I'm not going to tell you the specifics of each bull, but they're usually at 730, which is the easy calving. And for the D15, we only use or suggested this in cows. because of the double pulp gene. We have not had any problems with the calving. I've already showed you these were the data that has been collected, only 0.2, the index, very low, because they are designed for this. All of the animals, in fact, I did not comment on this, but all of the bulls, we have 500 bulls of F14 and 200 bulls of the D15, and they were selected, first of all, because of their performance, and they are given to different customers an amount of semen so that they can try it. And obviously, those who are having problems with the easy calving are first thing that they're taking out. They have to give the customer, the dairy farmer, that he will not have any problems. If you help me with the second part of the question, and the long gestation. This is something else, since there are some meat breeds that increase the days, and this is something we don't want. We don't want to increase the days. In fact, if we see in each one of the bulls that we have, you say how many days that bull has. But the truth is, if we look at the data that we have, we say of 270 days in average, 276 in the case of the D15. This doesn't increase at all. In fact, we have some that is shorting that gestation. Nicolás Fernández has two questions. I think you did it while you were giving your presentation, but I think it's valid for many of the people who are listening at this moment. What weight, when they are finished, what is the weight of the males when they're being sold? And how much do they sell them once they are finished? If there's any relation of the difference of price, I imagine this goes to the question on this line. But the data that we have been registering up to this moment, because we have some official and non-official data. The officials are the ones that I have showed you. In the case of the D14, which is our black line, we've had an average of 540 kilograms. In the case of the D15, if we go back to the maximum in the case of the T15, we have under 650 kilograms. The producers are very fat animals, especially they're going to take it to the fair because they have the tendency to be looked for by the butchers or the people who require a more lean meat. In the case of the price of sale, it's determining on the amount of the demand that exists. And on the other hand, if you are doing certain associations between the producers, it's true that we have seen a price very close to the Angus calf, which is something that makes us very happy, because we went with one of the Angus calf of 1,500 per kilo, a weaned calf. And before we went and sell of a customer of T14, which is sold 1,400 pesos per kilo. But you know, and everyone who is here, that the price is very dependent on the day and the place and the availability of the animals. But it's going far away from the Holstein animal, it's going more to the Angus. Also, we must consider that at this moment, we have a very high price in comparison to the other years, and we must mention this. So maybe you can see the difference when the prices drop, because when the prices drop, you can see that the calf, Holstein calf, normally for a long time, it was around 700 pesos if they were lucky. And a calf of the meat breed, or at least his aspect was very close to a meat animal, was over 1,000 pesos. So you can see an appreciation of this, especially when you're selling this animal in a visual way. That the expectation that you can have of this animal, and obviously there was a difference of price, but maybe today the prices are a little bit more even because we're going through a very good time where the prices have risen in general. Horacio Pavez is asking, what breeds were you integrated in the F14 and the T15? In the T14, As I always said, this nucleus has two lines, one Angus and Simmental. We have some individuals, if later on you go to the web page or you get in contact with us, we can tell you that we have some that are XB. Those are XB is a cross between the Angus semen. We have a very low percentage of the Simmental. But the idea is to have this hybrid, vigorous hybrid, which is something very small, and the highest percentage will be Angus, but we also have some individuals which are 100% Angus and other ones that are 100% Simmental. So between the black line, we can see these three breeds. Between the British Blue, which would be the T15, we are 100% British Blue, but it comes 10 years from the Belgian Blue, which is only for the use of the dairy cows. Horacio Pavez is also asking, do you have any experience in using the F14 or the T15 on the Kiwi animals or the Jersey? If we have any experience, a positive experience, as I was commenting about 4 years ago, a customer decided to use in his animals Kiwis and in his Jersey. And we also have a customer who, since he visited this other customer and he commented about his experience, he had a very good survival, very low mortality with animals that went out to pasturing very quickly with a period, a lactation period that was very brief. They were able to have very heavy animals, and mainly using the T15. Why? Because when we do this hybrid of the Jersey, our animals might come out black. So if we do not have a register, very appropriate registering, or we cannot find, because many times they might calve at night and we don't find the calf, we might at the beginning, in the first days or in the first weeks, confuse it with T14, but the truth is a Jersey. We have recommended it in our customers, Kiwi and Jersey, when they are having a very marked period of insemination and where the tail are the ones which was happening with the bull. When they use the bulls, they would use it for the meat production.
Bruno consulta.
Bruno is asking, what would be the behavior of that breed under a pasturing system? Only with their pasturing do they have higher nutritional requirements. So it would be very difficult for them to grow. The idea of generating this circle and to do this presentation was precisely to answer to that question. In our experience with the case of the Roble and the Coñico, and that they are giving pasturing system, and there's a very small supplementation. We have some other customers which have not given us the information, but they're not in the videos where their feed has been 100% pasturing. And what we want to do now, the next step would be able to publish this information and to be able to give this stratified, who are the customers according to their gain, when there was supplementation, like in the case of Santa Sara, where there was a feedlot, and the other group of customers where the pasturing and a percentage of supplementation, and the last group of customers where they are only giving them pasturing, with the idea to show how our genetics work and not only talk about the productive systems, but also be able to integrate what is the kind of feed and what was the cost that they had at the end with these animals. This was the idea, that our genetics work very good on the pasturing system.
Bien, hubo una ronda de consultas bastante extensa.
There was a very extensive amount of questions. Seemed like there was a lot of interest, so this is something very positive. So we want to thank you so much, Camila, for your presentation, for contributing these producers who are working with you. We wish them the biggest success. I hope that there are many producers. Hopefully they were able to visualize this possibility of this terminal crosses that could be, maybe they could try at least a fraction of their animals with this, and thus advance in these issues that are still gaps in our country. But we can see that there's a transversal union, that they have a quick road ahead due to the sustainability, due to the animal welfare, but also because there is a huge space to still improve meat and exporting meat in both markets. So thank you so much to Camila Mendoza. We want to say goodbye. We're going to leave you now free. And now we're going to separate just a few instances. Why? Because when we come back, we'll have the presentation of two professionals from agriculture and RICAI, the rearing of dairy milk calves, sustainability and efficiency. Please don't leave us. We'll be back in just a few seconds.